start the slideshow. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much to Bijan for inviting Iconem to talk at this event and for inviting Iconem to participate to this project in the first place. I think it's one of the projects that has been the most satisfactory for us, especially because it helps us connect the 3D data with satellite imagery, which is something that Bijan, Bob, and I have been talking about for quite some time. And hopefully this is just the beginning of a longer term effort to bring those data sets together. I assume that quite a few people have seen some of those videos already, but talking about worldwide digitization of endangered heritage, I think for us, especially these days, it's important to go back to the roots of the projects, which were in Afghanistan, and how the very idea of the documentation and the 3D documentation, especially for us, was rooted in this interaction with Afghan cultural heritage and its management back then, and especially the site of Messainak, which most of you know. And so arriving at this site first, and there's always been this tension between how much data can we collect, how far can we keep excavating before the site is sort of passed on to the mining corporation. So the idea was to very quickly find a way to accumulate as much data as possible, as precisely as possible, as quickly as possible as well. Data that would be both in terms of volumes and texture, which would then help provide a better understanding of the site, even if this data was disappearing, basically. So both trying to preserve what's already there, not everything, of course, but as much as we can, but also providing an access to sites which were not accessible anymore. And current access of state of Messainak is still a question mark, but the hope is also that eventually we'll be able to go back there and keep doing some work. This also led us to work in Palmyra, and always had this approach that was rooted in how do we use this 3D data for site management purposes, for conservation purposes. Here working on a block by block of the temple to provide, using archival pictures, a 3D model of the pre-explosion states. I wanted to talk about more recent work that we've done before moving on to our interaction with the Yamina. We have, I'm sorry, so we're missing the partners here, which is something I will want to talk about anyway. So we've worked in Beirut with DGA and with UNESCO, carrying out this large-scale 3D model of Gemazieh, of Karantina and Ashrafiyeh, and basically here relying on the existing skills of the DGA and local architects and archaeologists to carry out both sort of the drone assessment, but also the ground data acquisition. And at this point, we've been able to collect over 100,000 pictures and create a fairly high level 3D model of both the city, some of the main axes, and few buildings such as the Palais sur Soc or the Électricité du Liban, for instance. We've also been working in Yemen here in a very different ways, and we've carried out some training over the past 4 years at this point, providing some equipment and training both in Amman, but also remote training and sort of this on follow-up on a monthly basis. And here again, we've been lucky to being supported by Alif, but also working with extremely competent teams on the ground, both the SFD, but also the Guam and GovC, to cover areas in Sana'a, areas in the Hadramaut region, in Hadramaut. And then again, to sort of facilitate the data acquisition, even in places which are very difficult to access. Working with Imane Tariq, which is a Nigerian organization, and with the support of Alif, who's also done the 3D acquisition of some sort of earthen structures in the World Heritage Site of Agadez. Here is an example of the mosque, but also started looking into paleontological heritage as well, carrying out 3D models of paleontological sites in Niger. We're looking into same efforts in Mali as well, Mali, where we've also worked with the Mission Culturelle de Tombouctou, supported by the National Geographic. And here trying to provide always this sort of training on site so that when the staff of Iconem leaves, the data acquisition actually keeps going, which is a system that we've kept improving and is working, is working fairly well at this point. The approach in Mali was fairly different, is that we carried out the 3D model of the old city, but also of the 3 main mosques and the surrounding areas. And we carried out some ethnographic interviews of the head of the Mason Guilds, for instance, or the griot, who's the storyteller, or the historian, or the mayor. All of that sort of flesh out the 3 model with information that contextualizes what people can see, right? And I think the discussion that stems out of this is always like, how do you connect local communities from places like Timbuktu, Agadez, with technology that is fairly high end and requires quite a bit of hardware. And so that's sort of a challenge and the gap that we're working on. I wanted to use the examples of the sites that we've worked on for the EMINA project because they really help identify very different ways for that Iconem is working, but all of which are connected with strong partnerships on the ground. So for instance, in Oumel Jimal, we were really lucky, thanks to Bert and his team, to have access to an amazing data set, and working with the EMINA data set and the Oumel Jimal data set, which have already sort of dabbled with some photogrammetry. We were able to create a model, a 3D model of the site without actually going back there. So the 3D model is not really high resolution, but it still helps contextualize the data of EMINA. So here it's really just relying on what's already existing without even actually have to do some 3D data acquisition. In Ctesiphon, it was sort of a much more classic Iconem style emergency, here supported by ALIF and in collaboration with the SBAH, where we just get a phone call from Maya Kuminko and then just try to get to the site as quickly as possible. But here we had been working and training with a local drone pilot who's been trained in photogrammetry for years. And then we're able to send him to the site in a matter of a few weeks. And then this data was processed, both sort of pre-processed in Erbil and then sent back to Paris in order to provide the 3D model. Libya is also a more sort of a classic example of the work. So here we were collaborating with Professor Vincent Michel's mission, the Mission Archaeologique Française en Libye, excusez-moi, and the antiquities of Libya. And here, so the project was sort of in collaboration with the archaeological mission to carry out 3D models of different sites. We had more time. We did carry out some local training. The Iconem team went there twice. So it's a longer term collaboration that's integrated into a sort of fruitful collaboration with the archaeological mission there. And the Ladish sites, here talking to the EMINA and project and to Yazda was a little different because we were not able to provide a 3D model for this, but we did have colleagues which were able to do sort of basic photography 2D of the sites. I mean, they have done some type of photogrammetry as well, but the 3D model was not satisfactory. So here again was a different type of collaboration relying on existing skills on the ground. And even though we didn't create a 3D model, we still provided pictures to contextualize the data of EMINA. So all of this was just really trying to show that there are many different ways of working for Iconem, local training, long distance training, staff on the ground. I would just at some point just understanding what exists in terms of skills and human resources there, and then just do whatever works. But all of them basically have to rely on very on important collaboration with teams on the ground and integration with local communities. So thanks again, thank again to EMINA for providing us with the opportunities to collaborate, and very much looking forward to the next stages.